This is how to wire a DVC 4 ohm sub, the whole thing on one diagram. 1 subwoofer, 2 voice coils, 4 terminals, and you get to choose the final impedance the amp sees. 8 ohms in series or 2 ohms in parallel, just by how you join the 2 coils. It sounds like magic. It is not. Let me take it one joint at a time, and it is beginner safe the whole way. So what actually is a DVC 4 ohm sub? DVC stands for dual voice coil. It is one single subwoofer, but instead of one coil of wire inside it, there are 2, completely separate. Each coil is 4 ohms, and each coil has its own plus and its own minus terminal. Count them up. Coil A has a plus and a minus. Coil B has a plus and a minus. That is 4 terminals on the back of one sub. Here is the whole point and why people buy dual voice coil in the first place. Those 2 coils are not pre-connected. You wire them together yourself, and the way you join them decides the final impedance the amplifier sees. Same sub, 2 very different loads. First option, wiring in series. Series means you chain the 2 coils end to end. Take coil A's minus and link it straight to coil B's plus. That little link is the series jumper. It is the only wire between the 2 coils. Now you have 1 plus left over on coil A and 1 minus left over on coil B. Those 2 go to the amp. Coil A plus to the amp's positive, coil B minus to the amp's negative. When you wire 2 resistances in series, you add them. 4 ohms plus 4 ohms is 8 ohms. So a DVC 4 ohm sub, wired in series, is an 8 ohm load at the amp. Series adds up. 4 plus 4 equals 8. Second option, wiring in parallel. Parallel means you run the 2 coils side by side. Join both pluses together. Coil A plus and coil B plus, twisted into one. Then join both minuses together. Coil A minus and coil B minus into one. Now the combined plus goes to the amp's positive, and that combined minus goes to the amp's negative. 2 equal 4 ohm coils in parallel do not add. They halve. 4 ohms in parallel with 4 ohms is 2 ohms. So the same sub, wired in parallel, is a 2 ohm load. Same subwoofer. In series it is 8 ohms. In parallel it is 2 ohms. You did not change the sub, you changed the wiring. Now the question that actually matters. Which one do you pick? You do not pick series or parallel because one sounds better. You pick the one that matches your amplifier's rated stable impedance. The lowest load the amp is built to drive safely. Look at your amp spec sheet. Most mono subwoofer amps, the mono blocks people buy for a single sub, are rated to run stable all the way down to 2 ohms. That is where they make their rated power. So for a single DVC 4 ohm sub on a typical 2 ohm stable monoblock, you wire the coils in parallel and the amp sees 2 ohms. That is the common, correct build. If instead your amp only wants a higher load, say it is rated for a minimum of 4 or 8 ohms, then you wire the coils in series for 8 ohms. Match the wiring to the amp, not the other way around. Running 2 DVC 4 ohm subs, the same 2 moves just stack. The trick most people use is called series parallel. Wire each sub's 2 coils in series first, so each sub becomes 8 ohms on its own. Then wire those 2 8 ohm subs in parallel with each other. 8 in parallel with 8 is 4 ohms. 2 subs back down to a safe 4 ohm load. There are other combinations. All parallel can drop you to 1 ohm, which most amps cannot handle. So with 2 subs, always draw it out and add up the final number before you connect anything. The pattern is always the same. Series to raise the impedance, parallel to lower it. Combine them to land on the number your amp is happy with. Everything I am drawing here you can lay out yourself, free, in a browser. There is no install and no sign up. It is at CircuitDiagramMaker.app, and the link is in the description. Open it, drop in your sub and your amp, and sketch your own series or parallel plan before you touch a single wire. Now the one rule that keeps this beginner safe. Say it with me. Never present the amplifier a lower impedance than it is rated to drive. If your amp is rated stable to 2 ohms, 2 ohms is the floor. Do not wire your coils so the amp sees 1 ohm, thinking it will just be louder. It will not. A load below the amp's rating means too much current. The amp overheats, it drops into protect mode and cuts out. And if you keep pushing it, it fails for good. So before you connect anything, work out the final impedance from your wiring and check it is equal to or higher than your amp's rated minimum. Higher is safe. Lower is how amplifiers die. When in doubt, wire it up on the diagram first and read the number off the drawing. Let's put the whole picture back together on one sheet. 1 DVC for Ohm Sub. For terminals, coil A plus and minus, coil B plus and minus. Series joins a minus to B plus with a jumper, leaves 1 plus and 1 minus for the amp, and gives you 8 ohms. Parallel joins both pluses and both minuses and gives you 2 ohms. Follow any wire, end to end, and the final load is right there on the drawing. That is what a clean diagram gives you. No guessing at the amp terminals. Full disclosure, said plainly. CircuitDiagramMaker is our tool. For clean, shareable wiring drawings you can mark up and hand to a friend or an installer, it is genuinely good, and PNG export is free. The guest editor ships the free do-it-yourself symbol pack, which is plenty to lay out a sub and an amp. This has been an honest walkthrough. You can check every claim yourself in about 10 seconds. So that is a DVC 4 ohm sub, wired safely. 2 coils for terminals. Series joins one coil's minus to the other's plus for 8 ohms. Parallel joins the pluses and joins the minuses for 2 ohms. Match that final number to your amp's rated stable impedance, and never, ever go below it. Open the free editor and draw your own sub-2 amp plan before you wire it. It is at CircuitDiagramMaker.app. No install, no card. Subscribe for a new wiring video every week. See you in the next one.